I'll talk.
Yes, you can just go with it. Do we know if our students are coming?
The only thing I know is that they knew it was changed to 6:30.
Okay.
We weren't receiving information back. We were not.
Okay. Alrighty, we have New Hartford Plus, correct? Videotaping? Alrighty. So, the first order of business is the minutes from our January 11th meeting. I did not have anything. Anybody else?
Move that we accept it.
Second. All right, all in favor? Good deal. Hit the done button. Done. All righty. The agenda I have is the old one in front of me. So we have postponed, obviously, the fine arts presentation. We did because of Mrs. Woodholt's service, so knowing staff would be there and Dana wanted to attend, so we have rescheduled that hopefully for the March meeting. Is that where we're going? Okay. So we will look forward to that. Our students are invisible, as is our high school principal, so that leaves our middle school principal for a lengthy report.
I left room for the students. I'm not trying to be anti-social. Quickly, one momentous occasion is we've actually been in school for 2 weeks straight, 5-day weeks.
Full days.
Full days and no interruptions, and that's been good. The first thing I really want to talk about though is on last Tuesday, the 31st, we had the engaging elementary boys event, and we had 30 men from the community come from various different professions, and they spoke to our young men that were there. Mike Sullivan was our keynote speaker, and he came with his sharp axe blade and everything. And you might have seen it in the Republican American. He actually chopped a log with a really sharp axe with sneakers on, but I don't know that any one of us would have been that brave. But it worked out really well. We had some feedback from obviously the community leaders and business people that were here. They were very pleased with being able to talk with the kids in the small groups that they did. I will be surveying the boys in a little while. I want to let it just sink into them in terms of what they learned and if it was a worthwhile activity. It appeared to be from watching it. It was, but we were so lucky to be able to get so many people that came.
And did all 30 people speak to the whole gathering, or did they break up?
No, we did. What we did is Mike was our keynote, and he spoke for about 20 minutes, and just talked about hard work. I mean, that was a good thing that came from that. And then what we did is we had 20 tables set up in the cafeteria. We had some speakers by themselves and other speakers like 2 to a table. They were of similar professions. And then we had the kids rotate 4 times, so they saw 4 different people. The initial table they were at, or the tables that they were in, rotate through. We try to match it up with what Bruce and Amanda helped me with, because they had just done a career activity with the boys. So we tried to match them with at least one of the rotations with something that they might have been interested in. Obviously, we didn't have every profession represented like there. And if we did it in the future, we would try to do it. My goal at the beginning was to get 12 speakers. So when we ended up with 30, I was like so happy that we had that. And I pulled it all together and worked it out. And the girls should have an opportunity, the 8th grade girls, with the Litchfield County Women's Network this spring, and the event that they always do. So they'll have the same kind of program then. So that worked out well. We got some good suggestions from the men, because we had them fill out an evaluation sheet before they left. And some of the suggestions, are very good ones for us. So we're going to keep looking at how to, either do the event again at our age group, but we're also talking a little bit with Ken in terms of how to. One of the guys has suggested that maybe they follow them up through, in some way, not maybe in these whole group activities, because you have to be careful, because if you do it too often, then I'd say the novelty wears off, the impact wears off if you do it too much, but at the same time, there are probably pieces and pockets of things that we can do that would help moving through. One thing I learned that day was that small manufacturing in the area are really looking for people. They're looking for, people that want to go into it and learn and become skilled at it. And I myself didn't even realize how many people they were, like the Howmetts and the Sterling Engineering and B&B Manufacturing are needed people. So I think that will be something that we'll look at. They've, Tony Manning offered, tours for kids anytime they were interested. He's, willing to work with any of the boys, that are interested and whatnot. So that was a good takeaway, for me, for all the kids in the future.
And so we had our meeting with the select people shortly after the same day or the day, yeah. And both Don Stein and Dan really enjoyed being there and thought it went really well and felt like it was really productive. So.
So that's all I've done.
And they were very impressed with the access.
Did they tell you that he took like a thick piece of stock paper and just took the axe and just carved it like it?
Yes.
That was insane. But.
Right.
And besides that event, we are still preparing. The CMT is really in the classrooms now. That's where we're going. Bruce is getting all the materials ready because there's a lot of prep work to those in terms of accommodations for special needs kids, just making sure all those things are in the system and getting done. So that part's happening. We also have introduced bring your own device to staff members in terms of the logistics of how we're going to roll it out. We have, in the middle school, we've had about 7 teachers right now. About 7 teachers have kids use their phones or whatever they've had, Nooks, Kindles, and whatnot, in some class activities. That most of the time they're working in pairs, or in English they had where you go around to stations. In sports they did it with editing and revising. So they have used it there and found it to be helpful. I'm in the process right now of getting a letter ready to send to parents because I was asked by actually a 6th grade parent over the weekend that I ran into, about where we were going, what directions, because the elementary schools have been talking about it, as well as towns in the surrounding areas have been talking about that. We've been obviously talking about it with Judy and Ken and Roger a lot, with that and trying to get all the details, in a line. So we've done a survey of staff, on my end of the building, we've done that survey, and so I have a real clear picture of where staff needs are in terms of, where we would offer which things, and try to be very specific with the levels of need that we needed with them, from anywhere from being able to connect to a wireless network all the way to the people that are advanced and can do all that and would want to do more advanced things, such as some of them are already talking about flipping classrooms. Some staff members are. So that's been helpful, and we'll keep moving on that front.
And the letter to the parents, what will the gist of that be? I mean, I guess my concern is just that we need to make sure that we're really clear that there's not an expectation or / demand that every kid come to school with something, because I think that, while it's sort of desirable in some ways, I think we have plenty of families out there for whom that's not accessible, and I want to be really careful that we don't do anything to set those kids up to feel substandard, or, I want us to be really sensitive to that, because if 6th grade parents start to get letters that look like they need to go buy these for their 12-year-olds, I think we will all be hearing about that.
I understand what you're saying, and that's always, it's not even the back of my mind, it's in the front of my mind because of the issue. We've found out in most of the classroom, I think if we said, okay, everybody has to have a netbook, or okay, everybody has to have an iPad or a tablet, I think at that point, that would be really hard to do.
Right.
But I think if you say, use your iPod Touch, or use your iPhone, or your Android phone that they already currently have on them, and they're using that right now, or the notes or the Kindles that they've gotten. I think if we go there and then supplement for the kids that aren't able to afford it, right now we're looking at a netbook. It's actually, the specific one right now is a Toshiba Satellite. That's had good reviews, and that is being used right now in high school in the science lab because they have a one-on-one cart. And I've been working with Chris Frey on that a little bit in terms of that one, or the ASUS one, because we just got the specs on that. We also can get the specs on the Dell and some others. They make a student one that's like really heavy and supposed to be crash proof and stuff. But those they start getting up there in terms of cost. But these Toshiba satellite ones, they run about $269 or something like that, and they have enough memory, and they have a lot of battery power, and they can do all of the access to the web, but it also they can word process on them as well. So when they're doing blogs or when they're working within some of the sites that they'll do. So that's where we are. If I were to say, okay, let's go forward right now today with purchasing things, that's where we would be.
And those would be just what we call a gap device, so we try to determine how many, like estimate how many of these would we need to have on hand. And then purchase that small amount or whatever amount.
Similar to that. I don't know if that's Toshiba or
ASUS.
The reason the ASUS and the older model isn't being looked at because it's not Windows-based. It has its own operating system, so Chris was a little concerned about that. The new one is Windows-based, but the new one doesn't have as long a battery life. That's the other one. The other thing we're doing too is, you know how in middle school we've asked for the TI-84 calculators? And those run, depending on where you get them, somewhere around the $80 mark. I've asked the math department to look at, on these devices or on the web, there are ways to find calculators, scientific calculators on there. And we've been talking about that in terms of having those available instead of having to get this other calculator. So maybe algebra, maybe I wouldn't go there because of the level there. So we are looking at all different kinds of parts to that, so we're not. So no one will get left out of having one. We've already, talked to, teachers and looking at how we would use it. If there was a particular web page, you can save the web page. You can, download the web page to the hard drive before you leave, the building. Or still, I would imagine in our, first year or so, there will still be, paper that we will need to provide. Everything here is still filtered the same way as when you plug in the hard lines and stuff. So, we're thinking about all that, and we try to cover everything that we have.
Yeah, I know you're going to be sensitive to it. I just think, even just simply as saying that this is an opportunity to use what you already own, not a request to purchase anything additional. And especially, I think, for middle schoolers who are already sort of hypersensitive and hyper-vulnerable to peer pressure and perception and things that, whether that don't seem important to adults and aren't in the real world, but are critical to them, that we need to be really careful.
You're absolutely right. Automatically you would have the haves and have-nots.
And those exist already with who has a phone or who doesn't, who has a smartphone, who has an old phone like mine, And so just continuing to be sensitive to that, I guess. Yeah, I have an iPad, but I have an old phone. I know, I'm really cool. So.
Question. Your terminology, flip a class?
Yes, flipped classroom.
What's flipped classroom?
Basically, a flipped classroom is, in the simplest terms, is what people used to do for homework. They do in class with teacher guidance, and then the teacher puts the lecture or a video or instructions and concepts on an internet web page, and the kids access that information at home and do that for their homework, and then they come to class and do problems 2 through 20. That's the simplest term, but I mean, it's more complicated than that when done right, but that's how the term flipped classroom.
It's gaining favor because you're kind of front-loading the material you want the students to know when they come in, and then you have an opportunity to work very closely in small groups with kids so that they learn. In theory, you should have a deeper learning experience because you're spending time with them one-on-one in small groups, talking about the concepts that they may have seen the previous night. It really changes what the homework is.
So the homework kind of front-loaded at that point for class.
They're actually kind of doing the homework with the teacher, or the classwork with the teacher, but doing the discussion at home on technology. And there's people who are doing it find that because technology is so alluring to kids, that they're maybe more apt to do that at home rather than sit and do the problems and struggle and forget the lecture that they had several hours before. Where if they go and they watch that, then they can come in and get clarification on what they watched. They can work hands in hands with the teacher more closely. We've got some teachers in the high school that are going to be doing that this coming semester.
But everybody should have the expectation that not everything's going to flip right away, and not everything, not everything they do in a classroom is going to require the device. You know, the reason that we go to the device is because there's so many activities. When I used to teach health, you would want to use a TV and a VCR, and you'd have to sign it out of the media center. I would buy my own, get an old TV and a VCR, so I could have it whenever I wanted to plan my lessons and take it with me. And that's sort of where the concept of being able to have students have their own technology with them is, because in the middle school we have that lab over there with 24 computers, and we have one other one. So we have 20 teachers teaching period 1, and we have 2 labs. You know, and when people try to get into them, they can't. So people want to use short assessments because there's a lot of great material out there now in terms of visual presentations. I just watched on a video the other day a T-cell gobble a cancer cell. You know, a little short thing, you know, on just learning about all that. And when you think about the rich presentations, or you think about how the kids can become creative or how they can use some of these tools that are out there, but the teachers can't get at them because we're stuck with just 2 places, and we can't do a one-on-one where everybody would have the same thing on the table because we just can't afford to do that, not only for the device but the upkeep of them. So the going to the BYOD is simply being able to take advantage of the fact that they have this powerful computer most times in their pocket with more computing power in it than it took to go to the moon when we went the first time. When you look at, when somebody told me that a few weeks ago, that was before it came out, that was like the most astounding thing. And they have them, and as everybody, you know, the Haiti, Jacobs, Alan Novembers, all of the people that speak, all these keynote speakers everywhere, and they say that you don't use it, well, why not? You know, and you know, we trip over the policies and we trip over these other things, and in the end, when we get to the teachers that are using them, or the schools that have done it, a lot of them are finding they're not restricting more, they're actually opening up more. And not to diminish that there are going to be things, you know, but you know, the discipline arena, I deal with old-fashioned things, I deal with new-fashioned things, you know, I mean, it's still going to, people find a way when they're not. You know, it's like grass that grows up through concrete or a blacktop that's left, you know, nature finds a way. So, yes, we are very sensitive to that, and we'll obviously include you all in anything that you want from us.
Thank you. Mr. Chai.
Well, we are very excited because we have our next advisory meeting Friday. We got weathered out of our last one, and so we're very glad that that's happening. I think the kids are going to be very excited about that. It's working really well. We've talked about, we're just trying to build kind of bridges between the faculty and the students, and we're getting really positive feedback about how that's working and how the kids are doing. So excited to have that. We are also going to be going BYOD in high school because it really is a district-wide movement. And it's not as big, as I look at it in high school, a leap for us as it, and certainly it's not in the middle school either, because we have so many teachers right now that are doing so much with technology and have embedded a lot of lessons within their classroom already. Essentially this is going to allow us to do is to have the teachers have greater opportunity to do it. And we were talking to the English department chair today, and one of the things that she had actually requested and would never be able to get is enough computers for a classroom set in her English class. We're never going to be able to do that. And so if kids bring their own, and we can supplement with the gap devices that we have, she's going to be able to do the things that she really wants to do and kind of pass it around. So it's been a model that has worked really well in science. Really, the science department in the high school was the first really to have, like, you know, not a one-to-one, but one computer to every 2 kids in every lab, because it's shared and it's very mobile, and that has worked very, very well. So I can really see the promise of that and what it can do and how it can really drive instruction. We also are going to be doing the survey. We had to go a little bit slower because most of our time right now is being spent kind of reviewing the NEASC reports. Each of those community reports has to be read, and then has to be discussed at a faculty meeting, and then has to be voted on to be approved. So in the spirit of not piling a whole bunch of stuff on while people are reading all these reports, which are over 20 pages, we've had to consider that as a big factor. But we're going forward with that as well. And I think, for the most part, teachers are embracing it. We have teachers right now that are asking their kids to pull out their cell phones and use them to take notes, send papers to them. So it really isn't a big initiative. It's really kind of going to facilitate what we're already doing. Judy will probably tell you, as you know, we have a lot of kids very active in community service, and we started the Helping Hands initiative, and that is up and going. But we're looking, and I'll have Judy talk a little bit more about that, to do something with the Northwestern Kronen Club, and have our kids and adults become involved with them and their efforts to try to bring that wonderful structure back to life. We're also just coming off of exams, so really that's where we have been spending most of our time, and have been getting ready for the CAPT. Mr. Dudek has been doing a really nice job kind of pulling together the resources we're going to need to have that ready to go, and that's an awful lot of work, determining which special ed kids get which accommodation, and determining when to give the practice tests and all of those things. So we're in really good shape to have that happen. It's not going to be a whole bunch of shenanigans.
Yeah.
So.
You know that.
And so.
Okay.
I've been busy.
Sounds good. Any questions from Mr. Chow? Principals? You're welcome to stay for the rest of this scintillating meeting. Or go with our seats. Superintendent's report.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to thank the board for adjusting the time of tonight's meeting so that administration and Terry had originally planned to attend Donna's mom's service. So I appreciate that. I know these meeting times are set, and I know there's childcare issues, but I really want you to know that that was appreciated. I have just one word, that's budget, because that's all we've been doing, really, literally all we have been doing. So I'd like to just thank Roger for another stellar approach to the budget, and he's been terrific in guiding the process. So we will have our budget meeting February 22nd, and at that point we will bring to a budget that you will be proud of. That's our goal anyway. Our robotics team is moving right along. It's really impressive, and I'm really pleased to see the progress that they're making. Of course, they are in need for more money. I did write another grant, submit another grant to CLNP to see if I could get another $500,000 for them for that. They're also organizing a parent prom. They're working with Keith Blanchard from Highlander Fund, so they want to try to marry those two fundraising efforts, which I think is really terrific. I've been thinking an awful lot about the curling club since this happened, since the morning that hit on the news, and it's just been something that's it's so bothersome to me on so many levels, but it's also like a time for administration and the school to step up to really help. So I approached administration about the idea of doing something, the adult community in the district doing something to help the curling club. And then I met with TJ, who came down to have a meeting with me the other day. TJ Williams is president of the class. And we began talking about some of the things that the student body can help with too, as far as technology and things that they may be able to offer. We talked about being able maybe to build them an online photo gallery so that they can begin to build their history from this point forward. So those kinds of ideas. And then that very day, as I was typing it in my board report, Don called and he said, "Hey Judy, I hear that regional is interested in doing something." So then we began conversing about some things, and Don had identified a couple of areas.
Yeah, I'm on first the club only has 90 members, and we were shocked with what happened, but it struck me that it's about kids and what paths they choose in life, and so it certainly is appropriate. We're 2 Regional 7 grads caused the tragedy, but my son, for example, was a firefighter all night in the at the fire. So it just really upset us all over the holidays, and as well as the loss of all the memories. But we're a hardworking club. We did get fire insurance, but it isn't enough to rebuild. So over a 2-year period, we're trying to raise $500,000, which in a small community isn't easy. But also, we're very sensitive about over-tapping any resources. So the fundraising and communications committees that have been formed are thrilled with the Regional 7 idea. And I was explaining to Judy, I've got gifts in kind from some businesses. The advertising agency I work with is helping out on some of the fundraising look and feel and campaign ideas. But the website, we're going to need a very workable website. So we do have one already, but people can go and give. In fact, just when the news hit, the club raised about $11,000 just by people going online or sending money in. So it's going to be a really ambitious effort, and so we're hoping that the kids can help out with an ongoing thing. We'll have designs for the website, and it's an opportunity for the kids to see whoever's doing it, see how an ad agency works, and a little bit of career opportunity as well. So we're trying to bridge a lot of things and work with Judy on it. And there's other people like Mary Finette is the president, and I think some people have been in touch with Ken as well. So I suggested to the club that we have just a few people to be, the contact point. So we intend to get curling back into the northwest corner within 2 years at least. So yeah, but thank you for that, Judy. It means a lot to the club members.
Well, I'm very pleased.
And the community.
I'm very pleased. Thank you for that, Don. And one of the things that, talking to TJ, he said to me, "Well, what is curling?" So I said, I think what we want to do, Candy, actually, I asked Candy if she could look into this. We want to rent some curling equipment and run a little tournament in our gym for the kids to be able to do it and the adults to be able to do it. So kind of sparked the interest in curling. What is it? And started.
Well, it actually started on Toby Pond. It's on ice. So the Childs family brought in Mrs. Childs moved here from Utica, and her father was a big curler. So started, and there is a great history. So it's that the idea of a scrapbook online is a great idea. We lost a lot of memorabilia in the fire, but anyway, so yeah, that would be great. That's the thing we want to do on the website. It's not just, hey, feel sorry for us, raise money. We want to promote the school sport as a real northwest corner asset too. So
Good.
yeah.
Our technology work is going very well. As you know, Candy's the chairman of the committee. She's doing a phenomenal job. Right now we're in the process of researching website design companies that we can afford. So that, which limits us a little bit. But so we've been talking to some companies. We have 2 meetings again coming up in the near future. So we're just going to keep researching that. There's 2 parts of it. One is the public part, the face of the district, and then there's the learning management side as well. So those are two of our major focuses. The other is looking at the library media specialist position and also the technology director's position, and trying to find a vision for them in order to become more technology integration specialists, so that they become more resourceful for teachers. Teachers can seek them out, and so that they can become part of the leadership team as well. So we're looking at some training there for the library media specialist. We will be meeting on the 14th, looking at the budget for the library, the budget for technology, looking at a whole database of what is it that we are paying for currently in subscriptions. Is there any redundancy? We've done a survey to try to determine which subscriptions are getting the most use. So things that are not being used often, that is a potential area that we can reduce the budget or certainly reallocate into some of the gap devices if we can. So there's a lot of work going into the whole picture of technology right now, and I'm feeling very positive about where we are with that.
And just because I'm still a little old school, when you talk about subscriptions, you mean subscriptions to web-based databases?
Right.
Right.
Pockets of these great learning opportunities for students, but we just want to make sure that our money is well spent. And I got an email from Leor that I just told him I had to share it with you all because it's so wonderful. Dr. Palmer, I'm happy to tell you that I was awarded the Holster Grant. After a rather scathing interview with the Dean of Engineering and then an interview with a whole panel of people, I and 5 others have been given the opportunity to do independent research this semester and summer. I'm taking 24 credits now: multivariable calculus, chemistry, computation, geonomics, which is the study of genetics, but I've never really seen that word before. A biomedical engineering course, French, a class so that I can teach an orientation course for freshmen in the fall, and now a research class. I'm going to Peru with the Doctors Without Borders over spring break, doing a lot of work with Engineers Without Borders, starting a chapter of a group called Brighter Dawns, raising money for kids in Bangladesh, and loads of other stuff. I just wanted to thank you very much for your help and ask how the year's going. Is that the greatest email ever? I'm so happy for him and so impressed. I've been so impressed with that child since the day I met him, and he's just extremely special.
Does he sleep?
He does not, I don't think he does. But he'll be up there now all summer because he got the grant. It was a very competitive grant. And it was a competitive grant, and he walked through my office door that day and he said, will you help me? I really, really want this. And you had to see the determination, as you can imagine, in his eyes about getting this grant, because he just knows that his research will someday help change the world. And I absolutely believe him. So I just wanted to, I told him I was going to share that with you. So.
Very good.
That's it.
Oh, I wasn't.
That's it.
Yep. On the budget for our next meeting, will we be doing what we've done in the past, where here's the bare bones, the only increases in here are the ones we're obligated to, where everything else is frozen. That's one extreme. Here's our wish list, but within reason, a lot of things that we need doing and we want to do, and then something in the middle where we prioritize. Roger's going to want to do some capital projects.
Okay.
And the various departments are going to want, and just so we have a chance to make our part as we've done in the past. Are we going to be able to do that?
You're going to be able to certainly, I take my direction from you, so however you'd like to go forward. I think Roger and I got about a couple weeks we could present it the way you'd like to see it.
Could I?
Yeah, jump in.
Yes.
No,
I don't necessarily think we should think in terms of what did we do this year and let's keep it to that level. I think we should try to do what we call a business zero base, but we want to, what are our educational goals, what do we want to accomplish, what's missing against that, and then what would it cost to do that, and then prioritize. And I think that's the way we did it last year. We prioritized the issues around different
Right.
levels.
Where we want to-
And
Well,
we
if
made
I
some
remember,
choices.
if I remember last year, we had the initial budget, and after we perused that, then we had, y'all came up with three possibilities, zero base,
Right.
3 point something, and somewhere in the middle,
Right,
right? And then you also came up with what had to go and what had to stay in each one of those goals.
Right.
And I thought that was a good approach, because you can really get some flexibility to start looking at stuff, and we do this, we do that, man, I want to do that.
right, I mean.
Is that kind of neat what you said?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, I mean, we've talked about some important new initiatives, like technology in the classroom, and maybe some people need to grow into different areas of training, or maybe it's different people. So, what does it cost to achieve that vision, and then either step it down or make some other changes to deliver on what the expectations are for as minimal as an increase as possible. So,
Well, I think where Judy and Roger have been headed is trying to put together a budget that does as much as they can with as little as they can, sort of their recommendation. And then we would then say, okay, what would you, I mean, I think you can then ask, see how we feel about whatever that looks like, what that number looks like, and then ask, okay, if you pull out A, B, and C, where would that get us? You know, and sort of get a variety of things. That's where they've been spending their effort. So I guess my thought is to let them continue with that, and then we would then look at it. And then if that seems, whatever they come in with seems too high or misappropriated, then we can sort of start to rearrange things and ask them, you know, if we wanted to get to whatever. Well, I'm not going to put any numbers out there at the moment. A different figure. Yeah, a different figure. You know, what would it take? Or see whether what they come up with as their initial presentation is something that we can all just sort of get on board with right away.
Because once that figure comes out, that's all people hear.
Right.
It's X%. I'd be curious to know, well, what is, because things are going to increases.
Right.
Salaries are going up, insurance is going up,
Right.
oil is going up.
Right.
And we can cut it.
Right.
Year in, year out, a couple years in a row. So
Right.
there's only so much more you can cut.
Right.
So I'd be curious to know what is, acknowledge the contractual obligations.
Yep.
Zero out everything else, and what is that figure? So then the public knows, well, if we do nothing,
we're starting at that
Okay.
level, yeah.
now here's the number. We don't have zeros from the unions this year. We don't
Right.
have any other freezes.
Right.
We don't have any retirements, do we?
No.
So that's what we counted on before as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair enough, and I think if you, the presentation that you put together for the select people is sort of that, and then you can explain where it's gone from there already. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yes, maybe just a little bit more clarity. Because I was thinking we were doing
She's
the
already
exact
not
same thing.
sleeping, so it's good, which is fine.
I thought we were doing the exact same thing that we did last year. We haven't intended any change, right? Because last year we brought forward a budget, and then we had that big discussion. And then it was, let's take a look and see what X% looks like, what X%, and then we came back. We had another
you
meeting.
presented.
And then that's when we all kind of looked at that and said,
But we can,
but we can.
The kinds of things.
Right.
In
Which
your
is what Molly said.
presentation,
Right.
Right.
You know, where those, like you mentioned, the
Right.
salary
Salaries.
increases and what they are, so that you can see those.
Right.
And any of the new kinds of things, the initiatives that might be in there.
Yeah.
I think that'll kind of accomplish.
I think that will. Okay, that sounds.
If that.
Does that make
is-
sense?
would really-
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we're all on board with doing the same kind of thing we did last year. And I think, certainly I'm sort of jumping the gun here, Judy Stokes, but oh well.
That's right.
You know, one of the things that came out again of our meeting with the elected officials was that idea that you want to sort of have at your fingertips sort of one or two, probably two, but maybe three options budgetary-wise, so that when we go on do our dog and pony shows, and that comes up, we can say, well, these are sort of, this is the one we prefer, this would be another option, but this is what that would mean. So I think, you know, we're looking at generating all of that, but sort of starting at a place where this is what the administration is recommending or putting forward, whether they like it or not. And then we can tweak it from there. But that part of that presentation would be, this dollar amount is due to these increases, this dollar, you know, that we're contractually bound to, and that's how much that feeds in there.
So we're gonna see that on the 22nd?
Right, the 22nd will be the initial budget presentation from Judy and Roger to us, and then Roger has in his report a sort of timeline of budget stuff going forward. So yes, our months of canceling that second meeting are over for a while.
Of course. I'm probably adding a few.
Yeah, right, yeah, no, we'll be adding more. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, that's
All right.
where we're at.
That's right where we are.
Okay, I'm going to pass off. This is the, okay? This is basically similar to what we gave you last year. We have tentatively, and this is just a draft.
You're gonna take a pencil, right?
That's right. We have, booked in the places so we know they are available at this time. We did talk to New Hartford, and their tentative schedule is in here for the New Hartford hearing and for the Saturday workshop, which I got from the town clerk in New Hartford. So take a look at it. If you have any questions or comments, give Judy a call or myself. It's basically the same format going out to each of the 4 towns. Once, because this has been basically where the board has been in the last few years, you've wanted to do some real work on the workshops on the budget before you went out to the presentation, so that you were taking out to the towns something very close to what you were going to go to, intending to go to hearing with. And that's why it's kind of booked this way. Okay?
One goal that I have for us, which hopefully people will share, because I think, what Roger just said, that what we take out to presentation should be pretty well hashed over by us before we go out there. So that March 7th meeting, which is solely a board discussion on the budget, we don't have any other business that night, it's not a regular meeting, etc. And it's 2 weeks after we get this initial one. It's at that meeting that for those people attending ballet recitals, it's at that meeting that I would like anybody on the board who wants to go line by line, be specific, to sort of get in depth. Different members have different interest levels or tolerances for that.
This is the perfect time because I'm out of time. I don't have a tolerance to go through every line item.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no.
That we aim to do most of it at that March 7th meeting. And I know that's a little bit of a crunch when we all have lives and jobs and responsibilities, but if we can try to do most of that detailed work at that March 7th meeting. Because I think it's important work for the board to do, for those who are so inclined, and I think, it's a part of our fiduciary duty to do that kind of review. But I think the earlier in the process we can sort of push through that, then the more helpful it is for the administration and the more productive it can be.
No complaints after.
No,
Yes.
no, I'm thrilled.
No, he's.
And also, I really mean this, if you have any questions or time, or you would like to come in to sit with Roger and I, that's always an option, the door is always open, so that's available to you as well.
But then beyond that workshop, then we move forward.
Right, I mean, I think we will, obviously, it will be ongoing, it's sort of big issue conversations about what percentage increase we're gonna put forward and how that gets prioritized and the rest of that. That conversation needs to continue to happen because this is truly a work in progress until that budget hearing on the 23rd of April. Because if we're going to maintain integrity with those presentations, what we're doing there is seeking input. So it still needs to be a work in progress. It can't be a done deal, because why, then it's not worth going getting seeking input. So certainly it doesn't mean you can't raise another question or ask another issue or after that 7th. I just mean in terms of the sort of real detailed stuff, that it would be sort of most effective, I feel, to try and get that early in the process. And, you know, different people have different expertise in terms of technology or administrative organization or those kinds of, you know, the phone conversations that have come up in the past and that kind of stuff. I think that's the time to propose those or go over them or sort of get clarification about them. But certainly it will continue to be a work in progress until the 23rd. Okay.
Want to go over that building?
Yes, please.
You know, because we had the census, it's the time to evaluate the voting power of each of the members of the board. And this is the one that the superintendent has submitted to the state at this point, right? The total voting power is changed a little bit. The Barkhamsted voting power has gone down a little bit from total voting power for the two members together was 2.2, now it's 2.18.
So that's,
Okay. For Colebrook,
that's one, so that's.
so that's 1.09 for each one.
Okay.
For Colebrook, it's the total voting power is 0.85, down just a little bit, so each vote there is worth 0.425.
Yep.
New Hartford, total voting power is 3.99.
They're taking over.
And Norfolk is down a little bit. Obviously, New Hartford is up a little bit. Norfolk is down from 1.1 to 0.98, giving each individual a 0.49 vote.
So
And
each,
this will-
the individual New Hartford is 1.98.
1.995.
I don't know if we
And
can
this
get any
is-
closer to 2, I'm not sure.
Then the legal office of the state takes a look at it, gives it its okay, but that's what's been submitted.
And Judy called your pal, Ron Harris, who apparently is in charge of that piece of it as well. And so we're just waiting for verification of their stamp on that. And these will be our new.
No reason to expect those numbers to change, right?
It doesn't seem like it.
No.
Another 10 years before it crosses over that half point. Alrighty. Updates is next. I guess the feel like there was a second update I had, but one update is we did meet with the select people and boards of finance chairs last Tuesday, whenever it was Roger and myself and Judy, Judy did her very best to generate a preamble that went over the increase in the high school credits and sort of the administration's plan for phasing that in and what that was going to look like in terms of added staff. And I think about 30 seconds into it, Brian Noe was like, "So what are the numbers?"
Right, exactly.
So they listened politely. Judy did a great job presenting the information similar to what she had shared with us, and then gave them some preliminary numbers, which that round was at about a 4.4% increase. Looking at, with not increasing very much, but not adding very much, I shouldn't say that, but then with increases in contracts and health insurance and special education and a loss of some Winstead special ed students, which represents a loss in revenue. Anyway, it was a cordial conversation. I would say I would have to characterize it as the most pessimistic one I've had yet. If that's can be.
That was with all the boards of finance?
Yep, it was Mike and Sue from Norfolk and Ben Whitty and Dan from New Hartford, Brian Noe and Don Stein from North Hampstead, and Jim and Tom Keene from Colbert. So it was the full vote. And they continue to be supportive of the school and what's happening up here, but really and truly the most pessimistic that I've seen that group be. So the 4.4 pretty much wasn't happening for any of them, which I think we knew that would be the reaction, and understand their perspective. So that's kind of where it was at.
So it was positioned to begin meeting the mandates, right, which is what you mapped out for us?
Right, and there was an understanding of that, a frustration with unfunded mandates from the state, which we all share. And I think the sentiment really only shared by one person, but nobody jumped in and refuted that sentiment, was sort of, we can't afford this, don't start doing it, hopefully they'll come to their senses and take it back. So, that's a risky game for us to play.
Because then you're going to pay more later.
Right. Which, and that's been my instinct, was this is a lot to take on in one or two hits, better to sort of build it gradually and not have to come to you with, a 10% increase in a year. As I say, their sentiment was more, hopefully the state will renege on this and we'll take it. And if enough people say we can't afford it, then maybe they won't make us do it. So. Right. Yeah, and Judy's initiative, as she shared with us, there were a couple of things that she felt she was going to be able to do without a budget impact. And certainly I think we should still consider doing those, whether or not the state goes anywhere. I think we can raise our requirements for graduation appropriately. And there was already some time cushion built into Judy's formula, given the anticipation that it might not go exactly according to plan. So they have the information. At this point, they're not all that supportive of building gradually, honestly. So we can take that under advisement. I do think they genuinely appreciate being included in the process, and I think that effort continues to bear fruit. And I think that's it goes a long way if they feel like they've at least had a chance to talk to us.
I think that's been the biggest improvement since my involvement with the board, is the inclusion of the four towns in the budget process. I agree with you.
And I think it's good for them to, I mean, it's great for us, but I think it's really important for them to have the opportunity to talk to each other about what's happening in their towns too.
Right.
And it's a group that, you know, certainly I appreciate their perspective, but I also feel that they understand and appreciate my perspective being there as well. And I just couldn't ask for anything more than that. So it's very appreciated.
And I do think it also provides them with the ability to go back to their towns and say, we talked to them, this is what they explained, you know, we're trying to all work together. You know, it's not to avoid the adversarial feeling that existed for a long time, where, you know, that this school did whatever it wanted and, you know, everyone else just complained.
And each year a number comes out.
Right, right. So I think that over the last 5 years a lot has been done to sort of get rid of that sense. And I think they very much appreciate that. They are not then put in the middle. You know. So it was productive, but as I say, the most pessimistic so far. So not a lot of happy feeling coming out of it. I mean, not negative towards each other at all, but just sort of
Do you
weighed
think
down.
that pessimism is pretty much generated by the fact that the economy being where it is and no clear picture of where we're going?
Yes, and I think in particular, because of the way Connecticut funds education, the fact that the housing market is lagging behind even modest growth in other places means their grand lists aren't growing. And so they're between a rock and a hard place. So that's, you know, I mean, even if you can sort of feel good about other things that are happening, or that people might be beginning to feel a little bit more optimistic, until houses start selling and values start going back up, they're locked into sort of set pot of money. So I think that's their biggest concern. Is those grand lists from, or haven't in the last couple of years. So. Yes. I don't think we do. We just had one, so. I'd like to do something else.
We just did this last year. Maybe years of just, every year just.
Thank you.
I know. I'm just looking for it.
And I guess my only update for the 4 people not on this committee, we have started working on the board handbook. We sort of divided it up into 4 slots and are going through we did get a copy of the Berlin one electronically, so we can sort of go through that and then mesh what we already have in our policy book with the categories that are in that handbook. So we started doing that, and my hope for that is that sometime soon, the 4 of us will be able to get together and sort of review each other's work and start to begin to put together something that we would then bring back to the whole board for advisement and people to read and see what they think. Anybody else have any updates? Forgot to say at the beginning of the meeting, Terry's not here because she had family illness issues. Anybody else? Updates, questions, anything? All right, our policies are the next piece.
Okay, the first policy that I'd just like to, changes that I'd like to bring forward to the board, 6146.1. Basically, the only change here is under weighted grades, just that I'd like it to be noted in the policy that the weighted grades is under the jurisdiction of administration, and the formula for calculation is published, which Mr. Tribe has assured me it is, because it does have a lot to do with class rank, and there are sometimes questions regarding how that is actually accomplished. The second piece of that is just to define advanced placement classes out in policy, so those are relatively simple changes, but I think ones that need to occur.
So the formula for the calculations of the GPA is already exists?
It does.
Okay, so it's just putting it here so that if anyone questions it, it's
Correct.
there.
That's right.
And where is it published, if anyone should ask?
In the handbook.
Type in red, third line, second word in, system is misspelled.
Oh, good catch.
SciTem, it's a SciTem, it's not a
It's a
system.
SciTem, that's right.
Is that a
Thank you,
smaller
Rob.
system?
Yes, much smaller.
It's an electronically generated SciTem.
Okay, I'll have that fixed thing. Okay.
Yep.
And it's for first read. Second one has to do with immunization. It's 5141. This policy I'm bringing it forward due to the fact that there are occasions where we have a very difficult time having all the immunizations that are ordered by law actually occur in the time frame that the law prescribes for us. So this policy, I think, will go a long way in helping the nurses do their jobs. It also will make it, although this is driven by law, this policy will allow, it kind of pushes the law out to parents in policy. It will be up on the website to say there's just one place that parents can go if they need a reminder as to when these immunizations are due, when the physicals are due. Those kinds of things will be right there for them. It can also be attached to any letters that Kay needs to send out. And so I think it's necessary, and I think it will be helpful to the health department.
So this is a whole new policy?
This is a whole new policy.
Okay.
Kay and I did go over it together just a couple of days ago. We had some basically the only big change we had is everywhere it says superintendent, we were just going to write or his or her designee, because some of those things were carried out by Kay. So
You won't be?
and I won't be doing that. I will be checking for those things. So I want to thank Kay for her help on this as well. So this is a first read.
Okay.
Questions or concerns?
Should we, there's a couple references to kindergarten age children
Right.
for a more typical school district.
Right, I know, in the last piece too, actually, Kay and I talked about that, and we have a call into Mark Samaruga on a different issue, and I was just going to run that by him to see if that's something that we had to keep in. The only thing that we were talking about that day is if there were children who were homeschooled and they appear for the first time, would it be necessary to have that language in or not? I'm not sure, but Mark drafted this, so I'm assuming that he did give that some thought. But that's one of the questions that we had as well.
So this language is lifted from the law, or?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Lifted, yes. Okay.
All righty.
Okay, so again, that's the first read. And then the last one was simply the one that we had, that Rob had brought up last time we met.
Right.
So that is policy 9325. There were, in the paragraph under recording, broadcasting, or photographing meetings, it says in the policy that with the 24 advance notification and approval of the superintendent that these recordings can take place, but that's not consistent with the law, so we had that, removed, and sorry, that computer's in my way, so I'm having a little bit of trouble dragging this.
Should that paragraph be limited or be specific to the
anybody can come in and record duly posted, properly posted meetings. Anyone can.
So should it say the media and public may record?
And or member of the public.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Mhm.
Okay. And then on the second page, underneath voting method, just to keep it consistent with the other policy that we have on this, we just added, if so voted by the board, to that last sentence. And I think that makes it
Right.
consistent with the other policy.
Whereabouts on the second page?
Under
Under voting.
voting methods. Right, you can see it right. Oh, you know what, did you get the
It's not
update?
there.
No, you know
Yeah.
why? Cheryl,
Go to the
Cheryl
next
had-
email from Cheryl.
Cheryl had missed it the
Right.
first time, and
there
then,
was a subsequent email, right?
and then the right, I'm sorry, yep.
I thought the email, but I didn't print them all up.
So that's, those are the changes. Now, you can wait on that one if you'd like, some more time to think about it, or whatever you like, that's fine. So those are my policy proposals for.
Yeah, no, I think for this meeting one, I think we can vote on it tonight. Anyone comfortable with those changes?
I'll make
Just
a
raise
motion
your
to-
nod. Rob,
Second.
he's fine with this. Second email from Cheryl.
This is almost a majority of it, so.
That's why I'm waiting. All set?
I make a motion to
So you-
accept.
Yep, and second by Noel, all in favor? Okay, so that one's done.
Thank you very much.
So now we have two left.
That's correct.
Yes, we have the immunization one and the, I lost my mind.
The grade, waiting group.
Right, yeah, weighted grades and immunization ones that we'll revisit on the 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All righty, any new business anybody has?
Question.
Yep.
The goals, Board of Ed goals,
Yep,
as we stated, we have in our minutes,
yep.
do not match what is on the website, the Board of Ed website.
Oh, okay,
Okay?
yep,
And I don't know when I kind of bring that up, but I thought it should be in line.
yes, yes, they should be, especially since one of them is to keep a press with tech.
No thanks.
Okay, I will, tomorrow. Thank you, Noel.
Okay, sir.
Yep, very good. All righty, and then correspondence. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob.
In all of my free time,
Yes.
Again?
Yes.
well, my boss can be annoying sometimes.
Uh-huh.
They'll cut out graphs that remind me that in the last 8 or 9 years, the cost to heat a building, heating on it, has more than doubled. Whereas the cost to heat a building using natural gas has actually gone down. So, knowing that 800 feet right down the road is a gas line,
Uh-huh.
I started looking at area schools that use oil and natural gas to see if there was a difference. The closest one I could find size-wise to regional, we're about 250,000 square feet, is Avon Middle School or High School, which comes in at 228,000 feet. And their cost per square foot to heat with natural gas is about 67 cents. And we're up at about $1.15. If we were paying 67 cents, we'd be saving $1 about $168,000 a year.
We're in the process of looking at that. We would have to change over 6 boilers. So we're going to, this is something I think you're going to be able to.
Could you phase that in?
Yeah, I think that's what we'll have
exactly
to
what
put
we're looking
together
at.
a plan for it, if we decide to go that direction. But we're going to look at the cost of retrofitting the boilers, the cost of bringing the pipe up, which is probably going to be very expensive. I mean, I think that's going to be the most expensive thing.
$100,000.
Yeah.
But over time.
Over time.
Yeah,
Right.
payback.
And then I have no idea what the retrofit costs are, but we're looking at that. We've asked the contractor to give us some.
We're all in the same.
We are all in the same.
This is
Judy
scary.
was on that with,
Thank
so she's the one who.
So what kind of, how many years payback is realistic? I mean, we know the payback, but is it 5, is it 8?
Well, the unknown right now is the cost to retrofit our existing boilers.
Right, I'm just saying.
What would we find acceptable, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Uh-huh.
asking.
I think certainly a 5-year timeline would be
Yeah, I was thinking
pursued.
that too.
I mean, that if within 5 years we were ahead, then.
In the long term.
Right, I mean, 5 years is.
Natural gas, this right now looks pretty good.
Right.
Well, even with longer than 5 years, I suspect the school is going to be around for quite a while.
Right, no, I think,
That's the cost.
right, I'm just, 5 years would sort of be, for me, a sort of no-brainer period of time. That seems pretty quick for payback for that kind of thing.
But I think you probably want to face it. I think the big thing
Right.
is going to be figuring out what the oil line is going to cost, and then the retrofitting.
Right. Yes, no, absolutely, we need to
May
get
not
those
have for
numbers.
this budget, but it's something we may have towards, the end of this year.
Yes.
So we at least have some ideas to think about and begin to discuss. So we'll have some kind of proposal.
I wonder if there's any DEEP grant that could be had for that kind of conversion. You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's-
Might even be tax rebates.
Right, that's what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
anything, any sort of energy efficiency purchases, whether there be any.
For that kind of retrofit, not to mention the fact that CNG might be excited about that. too.
Yeah.
Right, right. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. One and all. Anything else? Anybody else got any big budget savings? Thanks, Rob. Under correspondence, we have 2 things, I guess. One thing is that we got a letter from NRG. The Northwestern Robotics Gearheads team, number 4055, sincerely thanks you for giving us the funds to make our robotics room. There's lots of activity going on in there now that the kickoff has taken place. We appreciate your support and are looking forward to the regional competition in March. They all dutifully signed it. You might think about penmanship classes. Yes, I know. Anyway, it's a nice thank you from them.
It really was a nice thank you, and they are really driven to make St. Louis just how you can't have a conversation with these kids without, they're going to St. Louis, so hopefully we get the Rookie of the Year. That would be just awesome.
Did we get a copy of this letter or not?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, reach out and.
Exponential after the second one.
Well, you're outnumbered.
Exactly, that's why we had 3 children. There's 1 for each hand, or
I
1
had
each.
2 and then I
After
got
that,
3
you're
more,
lost.
so I lost that battle. I don't know why it came as an, oh, there it is, sorry. Scroll down below my attachment. All righty.
I move this be accepted.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? God bless.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hope it's not true.
All right, I think that's it for our regular stuff. Just need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Come in whether you want to go or not. Thank you.